It's about 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I just got it for Christmas. Yeah.
I just told us stuff that pops up. It's better than
Oh, really? Oh.
I heard something. That us?
All you moving down with us.
Feedback. Years.
Counselor Berkeley.
Just a little bit late.
Did Rachel put these on here?
Yeah, so hopefully we can keep this work session to the moment. And stuff. Well, so, and then we have so much stuff coming at 4:30.
Hoping to run to my daughter's basketball game for a little bit, just
Yeah.
down at Lewis and Clark and come back. So
What time is that?
perfect time. She's like, oh, no, like, maybe I'll get just like 15 minutes.
Yep.
Remember those days, I'd be teaching at the mountain, and I'd have a swim meet at 1 o'clock.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, January 15th. The time is 1:02 p.m. So we'll go ahead and open it up for visitor comments. Anybody online?
People in there, but nobody said they need to try.
If you're listening in and you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand or raise your hand so Kathy can see it. Just a second here, make sure that okay, and if somebody is having troubles, we'll come to them after our first item on our agenda. Okay, our first item is a presentation by Columbia Pacific Economic Development District, COLPAC, Sarah Lou Heath.
Hi, that's us.
Yes.
Should we stay under roof tables or?
You can come up.
Sure. I'll bring my colleagues with me.
And we just ask that you lower your mask when you're speaking so we can pick you up what you said.
Great. I'll let Ariane start.
Thank you so much for having us. We at COLPAC are an all-new team in the last year. My predecessor, Mary MacArthur, I'm sure you all know her. I'm the new executive director, Ariane Colombo, and this is Sarah Lou Heath, our programs manager, and Lydia Ivanovich.
Got it.
Our programs analyst. So again, thanks for having us. And we just wanted to talk about what we're doing these days and also get some feedback from the council if you have it today. So if we could, perfect. Thank you. So I'm sure you're all somewhat familiar with COLPAC. We were established in 1994. We work on economic development in our region, which covers Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Western Washington County. Some of our prime roles in the region are facilitating partnerships on projects that cross county borders, as well as maintaining strong federal relationships and strong federal funding partners. And then we also do a lot of on the ground fee for service type work, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And here's just the geography that I covered just a minute ago. Thank you. So some of our fee for service work that we do, grant administration, we'll talk about in a minute, that we're doing grant administration for the city's food bank project for the CDBG. We work on funding strategies with partners. We do research, forecasting. We're doing some economic impact analysis right now. We also work with small businesses on low interest business loans and strategic planning. Next slide. Okay.
Excuse me, I'm gonna invite Councilor Berkeley to come up. He's really late. That's all.
Sorry, if you wanna.
Sit down.
Yeah.
There's no cookies down here.
You know, I have to leave my class early and I have to wait until somebody comes and watches my kid, my students, so I apologize.
No worries.
Well, I can speak to what Ariane briefly mentioned about community development block grants. Indeed, are funding the food bank construction you might be familiar with on Columbia Boulevard. That project is almost done, so really excited. The inside looks really great. That's actually a photo from several weeks now, so the space looks a little different. There's huge cold storage in it now, which is really impressive. So community development block grants are federal funding, but they're facilitated through Business Oregon that disperses the funds across the state and then into our communities. So our role in that is making sure that we can connect our communities with that funding. In that capacity, we do it through grant administration and what is called labor standards administration. So covering all of the federal requirements on reporting on a project, especially if construction workers are on site, application review, making sure that all the disbursements and reimbursement process is smooth and getting the money where it needs to go, and making sure that the city is never stretched on their budget, and making sure that everybody stays on task and the project moves forward. So food bank construction, that's an example of both engineering and construction. We manage a COVID relief, so that's PPE distribution. Those are emergency funds that we're helping distribute across Clatsop County. Vernonia sewer system, we're helping the grant admin on a design project, as well as the Clatsop County wastewater is also design opportunities. So we've been able to facilitate infrastructure and design opportunities, which is really cool.
And then Sarah Lou, I manage two groups, the Northwest Oregon Transit Alliance, so buses. John Dreesen and your Columbia County writer. He seems like a really awesome guy. They're one of my favorite groups of people. Some of the projects we're working on right now are additional bus stops to serve underserved people that have been needing them, and then also an open trip planner, which is pretty cutting edge technology that allows door-to-door planning services, including dial-a rides or taxis, and how to get really specific places. So it's really relevant for residents as well as visitors. And then the Northwest Area Commission on Transportation is an ODOT mandated group. Area 2 for ODOT roughly covers our same geography in the 3.5 counties that we cover. And so people are appointed to the Northwest Act. They're recommended by their jurisdiction and then approved by the county. They join us to give feedback, prioritize grants, keep a list of regionally significant projects and try to connect them to funding when there's not capacity, or as has been said, when the projects crosses county or jurisdiction lines. And then also I manage with Lydia's help the Regional Food System Partnership Grants. The first time USDA has offered this kind of grant. We're very excited to receive one of the first allocations. We're just entering year 2 of this project. Its main goals are to increase the availability of local food, instruct locals how to purchase that food, and then ensure a high price is paid to the producer for that food. We've seen a lot of supply chain issues, and some of the things that we've been working on have really been coming to the fore in this project. So we're working with 2 nonprofit food hubs, one in Tillamook, one in Astoria, a for-profit food hub in Astoria, and we are looking at potentially funding a local food retail storefront in Columbia County. That application will go in front of our panel next week. And so you can see the list of our other partners here, and that is my spiel.
We're also working on regional broadband, and I know the city has had a broadband project of its own. Our project is looking more at the middle mile infrastructure that would bring high-speed service into a city that would connect, say, St. Helens network to the 2 mile that where Columbia County would extend along Highway 30 down potentially 47, and then south along Cornelius Pass into Hillsborough. So you can see that it would also connect the other counties in the region. We're starting to write grants and work with private ISPs on this project So I'm sure more to come on that. It's starting to get really exciting, and I'm happy to answer any questions about this or any other projects if you have them. This is just a little bit of information about our loan program. Most of our loans are with startups or working capital for small businesses. We can loan up to $250,000, and our rates are usually a little bit lower than other lenders for non-traditional financing. And then we are also working on an EPA Brownfield application. We submitted that last December. If we get it, it will allow us to make grants and loans for brownfield cleanup, design, assessment, etc. And then lastly, we are working on our comprehensive economic development strategy update. This is a document that we do every 5 years. It provides a regional strategy, and most federal grants that any applicant in our region submits typically has to align with this document. And so one of the things we're doing now is, and one of the reasons we're here today, is letting you know what we do, but also asking for any feedback from communities in our region in terms of priorities. What types of strategies would you like to see in a 5-year economic development strategy document? And if you don't have any feedback today, John Walsh knows where to find us, so feel free to pass it through him. And then this is just a list of some of the dollars that we've helped facilitate in the region. Our board of directors, Mayor Scholl is on our board. And this is our contact information. And thank you so much, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was the broadband. That's something that we've been doing our own kind of research and look into. I was curious if we have any partnership with that, or if there's a potential for a partnership with that.
Yeah, there's a broadband advisory committee that is a countywide committee that we're participating in that discussion to make sure whatever we do aligns in the big picture. Do or don't do.
Great question, yeah.
You mentioned something about Hillsborough. Are you close to the airport? I mean, is the broadband close to the airport, and will that be an issue? I don't know who came first, the Wright brothers or Alexander Graham Bell, but that's going to have to be hammered out by those two entities somehow. But is there any other kinds of issues other than what's newsworthy now regarding 5G?
So we're not working on 5G specifically, although we do think that some of our project will enable 5G away from airports, maybe along Highway 6, for example, where there's zero communications. But the project more is providing fiber along the backbone routes that enable local communities to access competitive high-speed internet, whether that be fiber to the home or some other type of technology.
Yeah, I think it's really a crucial part of our infrastructure because we only have two providers, but really one. Mm-hmm. And then they claim their X amount of service to us, but it doesn't seem like they really meet that. And it'd be nice to have an option out there. Yep.
I appreciated what you had to say about working on those spaces, those areas between the population hubs. I teach out of Columbia City, and I have several students who are way up on the hill, and unfortunately when we're shut down they can't the virtual learning is not ideal in the first place, but some kids just have no access. Now I know they wouldn't be served by our system, which I certainly think is important, but I'm really glad to hear that you're working on filling in all those lines for connectivity. Some good stuff. I get to pass by the new food bank every day. I live down on 14th Street, so I always take a quick look in and see what I can see in the interior, and that is an exciting project. One question I did have, and maybe this had been addressed. So as a development district, is it, where is your, how are you established as a district? Is this a state entity?
Yeah, so we're actually designated through the Economic Development Administration, so it's a federal designation.
Okay.
And Oregon has 12 of them, and it covers all of the 12 districts cover the state.
Okay, so you're one of 12.
That's right, yeah.
I'm also glad to see some of the activities, and this was my reading last night. And I actually was spurred on to read this. The Ford Foundation gives free books. And if you read the book and submit a review, you can get another free book. So I chose this one, and this book was particularly interesting because it talks about this gentleman. He's based in Bend, but he talks about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And it seems to me like in one of the previous slides there that you were talking about not only startup businesses, but also what I think he's calling second generation traditional businesses, but also the ability for our community not just to support our already established kind of traditional businesses, but what we might be able to do, especially with our business park coming in, to lure entrepreneurs, even to the extent of finding out locally if we've got angel investors and looking at other non-traditional means of bringing in funding. Anyway, it's a good little book, how to make your community's economy sizzle, and very, very eye-opening. But and I thought it was especially eye-opening because it's talking about not just supporting our businesses that are here, but what can we do to really develop entrepreneurs and bring in additional sources of income. So it's exciting that you exist, and I'm sure working with our other businesses to help get that off the ground.
Under your co-pack impact slide, you have the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, which is, I think, pretty much run by Oregon State. What are you doing to have its impact spread to St. Helens? I know one of their stated things was to induce our high school students to go into the technical world, and pretty much that's been a failure or such a minimally noted from that there's no impact. What influence do you have for them to say better serve us?
Well, so I would say our influence is somewhat minimal. However, what we are starting to do is traditionally our organization hasn't done a lot of work in workforce development, which I think is what you're referring to. We are starting to move into that with our additional staff members. And the way we're doing that is the region has a workforce board, and we're starting to work with that organization to better connect the relationships with OMIC and our community colleges. And then the community colleges are starting to work more closely with high schools on CTE and other STEM related programming. So I will say right now our influence is minimal, but we hope to have more in the future because we see that as a need as well. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it does not happily, but yes, following the same thought of pattern, do you have an inventory of the technical skills that exist in this county that we have unemployed people in, so we could target businesses that would absorb those skills?
So typically that is the type of work that the workforce board does, or PCC. And I know that they are both working to expand that programming in Columbia County. PCC's campus is just opening, I think last spring they officially opened. And so they are focused on making that impact in Columbia County. So I hope to see improvement in the next year or two, but it's something that we're also watching.
But you're not involved in, you're a watcher, not a doer.
Well, our organization hasn't done that in the past. We hope to do more of it in the upcoming years.
So how does a small business go about obtaining a loan from Quebec?
Well, they would need to contact us and then we can walk them through the application process. And typically we do a little bit of vetting on the front end before they actually apply. Because if they apply, we want to make sure that it's a pretty done deal. So it's a typical underwriting process that we go through.
And something that we could use here as a council would be a little more education on opportunity zones. And I know I first learned about it from Colpack. We had a gentleman come in, it's been over 2 years ago now. To Tillamook and present to us versus a 1031 exchange versus opportunity zones. And I don't know what you're familiar with on opportunity zones, but in the future, we could really use that to entice businesses here as well. So if we could find out some more on that. I talked to Paul Vogel a little bit too, and he's done a little bit of research from CSET. I know you guys work with him. So we might want to reach out to him too. I just haven't touched base with him yet, but if we get somebody just to kind of present to the council on that, so we can help promote that, be great, because we are a large opportunity zone here. Yep.
One of the things that Columbia Pacific District does well is just provide information and resources and services to a broader region. You know, we don't need a grants manager all the time. The city is taking on issues that cross boundaries like we talked about, and broadband and what that means to the lives of the people who live in this region of the state. One of the things we did a few years ago was compete for a Brownfields assessment program. We ran a program and did economic development or environmental assessment with different properties that came to us internally. We managed all of that, and
properties all over the city.
all over the city, and it was a lot of work, and I really liked the approach because it was, you know, there were people that had properties outside the city that wanted to do it, but they weren't really in our plan. And this Colpack's taking on a broader look for a broader region, and really doing the right things for
Matter of fact,
get those properties ready, right for development, redevelopment. You know,
the real estate office right across from us was actually qualified for one of those.
I was just saying, at the rate we're annexing properties, we might be pulling them in.
That's some sort of annexation.
We've been doing a lot of annexation.
And just the grant writing services, as far as the technical nature of we develop block grants and things like that, it's just fantastic to have someone local to go to, and I'm, you know, go to the meetings. I'm a signer on the account. I feel like we do our part, so.
I just had one last comment, which was that you asked for some feedback of areas, and in my other job, I should say my full-time job, because both jobs are full-time jobs, but my other job, I am a counselor, and so I work with a lot of our community hands-on every day, and one of the biggest issues is transportation. It really is a huge area. We're lacking, we're rural, a lot of people live out of town and then not having internet, so it's a constant struggle to keep people connected to resources, and transportation is definitely a huge area.
And on that, do you mean that the road infrastructure is not being maintained to the standard that you hope, or that there are not transportation services for people outside the city?
Both. I mean, it's both. We are addressing some of those road issues, but a lot of like our senior citizens or low income folks just don't have, there's no buses. I mean, there's not really any bus services. There's not, you know, an Uber, there's nothing out here for transportation. People rely on neighbors and family to get places. And as our city grows, that's going to be a continued issue with people getting places they need to go in town.
I have one thing to pony off of with her on that, is that we, as employees outside of the area, get taxed a certain amount for transit. That balance is 1/3 St. Helens CC Rider, 2/3 TriMet, and it needs to be the opposite way. Because we do not have CC Rider to get us over the hill like people would utilize it if they could. But you either have to get up an hour and a half early before work and go wait in Portland, or you're gonna be 45 minutes late.
Right.
So, and that is, I've looked into that and I have talked to CC Ryder about that and I hope you get further than we did. We were told to mind our own business.
Well, that was something I wasn't aware of. I'm definitely
Yes.
interested in figuring out.
It's a
How
huge
that
problem.
happened.
Yeah, so that is literally true though.
Okay.
It is at least 1/3 only to CC Ryder and 2/3 to TriMet.
As if they
We
could
were told to
teleport
mind our own business because TriMet is TriMet.
because they're, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great
A
note.
lot
Thank
of
you.
people around town rely on the medical transports to get places they need to go, but that doesn't help with school and the grocery store.
Right,
So,
right.
or going out of town, you know.
Yeah. That's great feedback. Thank you.
Now, we've talked about the industrial center trying to get new businesses in and places just outside the city encouraging businesses. Let's go to the next area called the river, or waterfront, which we have a lot of in Columbia County. How are you involved in improving the waterfront from a business point of view?
Well, one of the projects we have going right now is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the High Up Tongue Point project. They're looking to fund a travel lift at Tongue Point. We are working with them on an economic impact analysis that would help them get that funding. We're also working with the Teben brothers on their rail line spur, that's Clatsop County as well. And then in Columbia County, we are working with the city as we can on your waterfront. We're also a partner with the Port of Columbia County. So we're working waterfronts and improving waterfronts along the river, huge priority for us as our ports and the infrastructure that our ports need, especially our coastal ports, which have been underinvested in for decades. So those are all at the top of our priority list.
And I would say the strength of what we do in this work is work with groups like this council on the objectives that you have set as priorities. And our role is finding the flexible solution when you need a government that's not your government to apply for something, because we do have NOAA stands for what?
The Northwest Economic Alliance, Northwest Oregon Economic Alliance.
Which can serve as like a little government. We've done that on some grants. And so it's kind of like, for example, Rachel sees all of the potential, what's Rachel's last name? I'm sorry. Rachel Berry. And and so we've had a lot of conversations about setting up an Oregon Main Street in St. Helens, which, your downtown is, and so it's really about how can we provide additional capacity to your staffs to get your goals done. And our work is a lot on the funding side, so we can hand the projects back over to you. That might help understand our place in the ecosystem.
I'll just add that as an organization, we don't necessarily do the work that cities and counties do, but we are always looking for the opportunity to help bring capacity and funding to priorities that you have, like Sarah Lou said.
Now I'm gonna bring up one of my favorites, which I get upset at, and having to do with bringing stuff to the area. The state of Oregon does not typically advertise in facilities, magazines, executive facilities. Why don't you come here? There'll be whole articles on this state or some port. How come we don't even, or can you even advertise in these? Are you allowed to advertise in these location magazines or journals to bring people here?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if we are allowed or not. We likely are, but we typically haven't done that type of work. Business Oregon does a lot of that. Columbia Economic Team would likely do something like that, as well as the port. But our organization has typically not delved in recruiting of companies like that.
Well, as I say, in these journals I just described, they don't. Oregon is kind of one of the states that is always absent. And Columbia County has got some of the best waterfront and probably the most waterfront in a single county of anybody in the state.
Oh, yeah. one of the issues that I have, that I've always had since I've been on the council is where is tourism? So I'm looking at, always looking at bringing in dollars from the outside to spend in our community with our service-based economy. And I'm looking at that and I see some things about, the small business loans and those kinds of things, especially the Garibaldi Wharf rehab. Those things could have a huge impact on tourism and tourism dollars. Is there anything else on your radar? I mean, I've often been a critic of the port because they were so focused just on industry, and like Mr. Topaz says, what can the river bring us? Astoria certainly worked through the tourism thing, and now there's cruise ships, or there was cruise ships before the pandemic, creating a tremendous amount of wealth in their community. And is there anything on your radar that way, or is it a value structure that not only do we encourage large, huge businesses and corporations to come to our community, and hopefully smaller service-based businesses, and with the ability to create a tourism magnet in this community? Is there any value to that you folks can speak to with your group?
So let's see.
I just
Well,
I just see a lot of things about big industry and that, bringing foreign companies here and those kinds of things. I don't know if I see a whole lot of value to that, with other than it does create jobs, but many times jobs that are already taken by those companies, or manufacturing is something that I value a lot. It seems to me like Columbia County has been nothing but that. And I was really pleased to see that the port recently has gone into recreation opportunities, which has brought a bit of tourism to our community. So that's what I'm saying. And I think if you deal with Classic County as well, is that correct? Yeah.
So
A lot of water down there too.
Yeah, we peripherally track tourism in our region. It's not a focus that we have right now, and I'll tell you why. Although I will, before I talk about that, just say I know Columbia Economic Team is very focused on tourism in Columbia County, and they're doing a great job. We are helping them with grant funding where we can on the application side. And then as far as our organization right now, we're a very small staff, and we have chosen to really stay focused on infrastructure one, and that supports tourism in some ways, just because in a lot of cases that infrastructure is underinvested in or non-existent. So the second thing we're focused on is workforce, and that we don't do directly, but we're trying to facilitate and focus on those relationships and that programming where we can. But in our view, those two things are the most important pieces in order to level playing fields for economic activity. And so that's why we're focused on those two things right now. It might change in the future if we grow, but that's where we are.
And I'll just add a little bit of more detail underneath that statement. When we have the opportunity, for example, to write a strategic plan for a port, we're going to be looking at their infrastructure to see, what tourism activities can be beneficial without the service costs outweighing the income for it. And then on the transit side, because I'm sure you have all been out to your favorite small town on the Pacific, and the last couple of years, traffic has been nightmarish, trash has been nightmarish. And so that's one of the reasons that instigated this open trip planner investment through the transit agencies. Now, as a visitor, you can book, when this contract is complete and the tool is built, you will be able to book, from your door, a ride to the train station, your Amtrak ticket, your bus, either to St. Helens all the way through to Astoria, the next day ticket all the way down to Lincoln City. And so it's kind of connecting the dots for people. This area in Northwest Oregon is pretty rough and tumble. Like, we're all at the edge of the continent, right? And so when people are expecting European style travel booking opportunities, and they're getting, what, you don't have Uber? And what do you mean this highway's closed for 4 hours because somebody, had an accident? And so while we're focused on the infrastructure side, it certainly impacts the ability to be successful at tourism.
I'm glad you answered that, both of you. I appreciate that, and I think I sense the value of some people values, and as well as just the word jobs. Sometimes takes me kind of. I don't. It's just so broad, and it means so many things. But specifically, tourism, our community can also benefit from tourism activities, as well as tourism dollars coming into the community. Anyway, thank you.
The beautiful boardwalk is.
Can I bother you in the wrong direction about transportation?
Sure.
One of the suggestions is we have a railroad going through town and use that as a commuter line. And at one time, you could get to Astoria on the railroad. That's kind of the front part of the book. The bad part about it is we've been informed that the trolley lines, rail lines in Portland is the railroad for crime. The amount of disaster that the Portland police have to track down where the criminals use that as a transport system. And even out in Hillsborough, the corridor around that. As you look at these tourism transport systems, do you incorporate into that the security that's going to be needed, especially if we have people who from outside the area wandering around and don't know where they're going, but becomes very susceptible to problems. But mainly the security of bringing a lot of people out here by easy transportation.
I want to respond to about 5 different things in that question.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't speak for how rail yards are being abused in the metro area. I personally, we've never talked about it as a group, I love the idea of reinstituting the rail line between the metro and Astoria. Last estimate I had for that was $1 million a mile. So that's somewhat of a hill. As far as safety and security of bringing people out to the coast, absolutely. While it's not something that we engage in, most of that marketing is done through DMOs that are managed by Travel Oregon, et cetera, et cetera. But there's often a really important conversation for any campaign is like, who are we targeting with this information to come out here? My preferred, and again, I'm speaking personally because we don't get involved in tourism, but my preferred tourist arrives on a bicycle with a credit card and wants to stay in a really nice hotel room and mail art back home. So I know this is a pretty specific profile, but I think that the people that are working in those fields directly are very cognizant of the impacts that they're having on their communities, because there is 2 very strong sides in the tourism conversation around that. So can I answer your question on would a rail line bring crime? I can't predict that, but I know that people that work on destination marketing are very aware of their impacts.
That was very thoughtful.
Thank you, guys.
I'm just thinking, what realistically, what do I see down there? And what I see is sometimes multiple vehicles per family ended up at a hotel. And I remember when this pandemic started, it went down to Lincoln City, and it was just pandemonium down there. It was absolutely nuts. You'd have never even known there was something going on. And people like being at the coast. And but realistically, me myself, I'd drag my boat down. I would fish. I would probably smack a couple fish in the head at the club and take them back home, or some razor clams or something like that.
See, and places for you to tie up and areas for you to process your fish before you go home and the ice to make that availability. That's the type of work, that's the type of infrastructure that we want to provide. And then I can just tell you that I sit with the, gosh, it's a long acronym, North Coast Tourism Management Network. That probably popped up in 2018 because so many people were trying to work on the same projects and duplicating work. And one of their projects that I think is really meaningful is working with each city to get information to hotels. So when you book a hotel, it says, this is how you can see everything that you want to see without your car. So come here, park your car at this hotel and don't get back in it until you're driving home. And just each community has such nuanced opportunities that it takes a lot of time and manpower, and that's not what we do directly, but I work with this group on initiatives like that, because the concerns are real, but the value is real too, so.
All right, well, I think that was it from everybody. Nice meeting you.
Absolutely, nice meeting y'all, and the last slide is how to contact us if anything else comes up, and Mr. Walsh and Ms. Berry know how to get a hold of us, so. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Yep. I think if we have any. Right, next item on our agenda. Now the bleachers here. Dr. Roya, come on down. We're actually getting a building division semi-annual report.
Good afternoon. Thank you for making time on your guys' agenda, and I do apologize I didn't make it on the last meeting. So yeah, I'm here to give you guys our semi-annual building division report, and I'm gonna just start right into it with customer service. Because that seems to be what drives many of the decisions that we make and that's really where we can be setting ourselves apart from other places that people have to do business in. We have to apply the same code statewide. We have to use the same methodologies as other jurisdictions. So really it boils down to customer service, the kind of experience they get when they come and do business in St. Helens. And so I want to start that off with this report is going to talk about how our customer services foundation is really in our staff and our rockstar staff that we've got up front. Heidi and Christina are keeping things balanced and moving, keeping us organized, keeping our customers informed and organized, and just really keeping things moving. John, who just celebrated his annual, he's off probation now. He's just been here with us a year now, and things are going great with him, but he continues to expand on the mantra that we have of being a resource to the people that do business with us. We regulate, we know our authorities, but again, trying to set ourselves apart. We try to be a resource and educate people. And he does that by making himself available on site, over the phone. We kind of have a saying between ourselves that if we can, we will. So when people call and ask us to provide them services, we've got that opportunity to do it and take care of it. And then just something that doesn't always get brought into the light or noted on time cards and that sort of thing, and just kind of want to, again, point to the dedication that our staff has. Sometimes there's a customer there and it's time for them to take a break or it's time for them to take lunch. This is their personal time, but they forego that. They don't get asked to, they aren't expected to, but they just do these sorts of things because they are committed to our customers. And that does, we get feedback on that. And so I want to make sure you guys are aware that's going on as well. And so just want to again tell them how much we appreciate them. So other ways that we're moving forward and improving our customer experience is the plan review project. You can go to the next slide. Sorry, forgot I had slides. Just an update on that. We are set to go live with that this month. There was a slight delay with my absence in the past couple of weeks, so we are picking up some, having to make up for a little bit on that, but we are starting to move into training. Since last time I talked to you guys, we have selected DigiPlan software, which is a digital plan review software service. It's going to be installed by TruePoint Solutions. We signed a contract with them. The overall cost of the implementation project is $9,990. Some of these things that we're implementing are required by the state. So in some conversations with the state to make sure that we're hitting some of these requirements, it did come up about reimbursement of the cost of this. And I won't get too far into the details of it, but after finishing the conversation with the state, we did revise our IGA to reimburse us for the implementation cost up to $7,500. So that makes total implementation cost or the burden on the city at $2,490, just about $2,500. So yes, that was good news to get from the state, and we appreciated the state working with us on that. And that's the update on the e-plan review software. And so that kind of segues into, again, just moving down, how do we improve customer experience? Well, now that we have this new software, this new technology, how do we push it and exploit it to its fullest capacity so that we can give our customers just that? And what we're talking about now is how we process our plan reviews. Right now, we use a consecutive type system that can basically, when a plan comes in, it goes to a department. It has to be fully approved. Typically, there's some exceptions to that, but it typically has to be fully approved before it moves to the next department. And that has a lot to do with just access to the physical plans. This process now, with making it all electronic, everybody can go to the same location at any time and access it, make all the plan review comments, and one collective, here's all the comments you need to take care of to resubmit on. And just in talking this out with the other departments that this impacts, just talking it out, we're already looking at 50% time cut right out of the gates. Going from our normal time right now that we'll give you is about 4 to 6 weeks. That's our average. We're talking now 2 to 3 weeks average of review time. And so that, I mean, I don't care what customer you talk to, that will put a smile on your face. And so want to also just take a second to appreciate, give some appreciation to the other departments that have been talking and collaborating with us on this. And that's been the engineering departments, public works department, and planning departments, and their managers. And just want to tell them how much we appreciate them working with us to continue to improve that experience. And on the note of collaboration, also wanted to talk a little bit about something that the fire marshal and I are starting to work on, Fire Marshal Tad Peterson. We've been working with each other since he started with CRFNR in 2020. And as we were going through as the city was going through our operational plan, part of that is to talk about how we coordinate with the fire marshal's office. And there are some minimum standards we can point back to in statute that we can follow, but we're realizing in our conversation that we are well above and beyond those. And so it's appropriate for us to put that down in writing, not only so that our staff for the different offices have direction on how to move forward with different things that we have to collaborate on, but also as a legacy for, you know, the next building official or next fire marshal that might come in to therefore convey what the city wants to do and the kind of relationship that we want to have with the fire marshal's office. And so just some of the high level points that this agreement is going to be in is talking about what we meet about, what we talk about, the different types of permits that are going to be available to the fire marshal, not only for review and comment, but also for their own purposes of training and preparedness. And also to talk about local projects that are going on and local conditions that we face here in St. Helens. And so we bring in something to you guys a little bit later in the year for your approval in that agreement. As I mentioned in that, we are working on our operational plan. This is something that's actually required by state law to be updated every 4 years. And the state had some delay in that in 2015, and we have not had an updated one since. And then in November of this year, they got their decisions together and said by the end of January, we'd like for you to all have your updates in, and that's where we're at right now. And so digging out and dusting off our operational plan that appeared to have been updated in 1997. We've gone through it thoroughly with a fine tooth comb, updated it. The biggest thing I can tell you about it now is it's accurate. And that's mostly what the state wants to know is what are you doing? How are you administering and enforcing building codes? And how does it meet up with the current statutes and rules surrounding that? And so we are just rounding up the last little bits on that. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of give was some statistics of works that's been done. And I'm sorry, I'm still forgetting to ask you to proceed on if you could go to the next slide. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, training and education. We did complete all of our required training between John and I. That's required for the code updates. Next slide. And then just some statistics real quick. So since last time I spoke with you guys in July, we've issued 298 permits. In that same time period, we performed just within the building division, 166 plan reviews and 3,038 inspections at an average of 117 a week. And again, if you need other plan reviews and other types of inspections that are performed outside of our department, those reports will give those to you as well. And then just to touch base on a few projects that are going on around town, Greystone Estates, that one is just about wrapped up. They've, I believe, only have 3 final out there left to complete. And that subdivision will be finished out from a building permit standpoint. The high school renovations, or I'm sorry, Elk Ridge Phase 6, that one is running about 80% filled in. They're still bringing in applications and still getting their permits up there. Next slide, Forest Park. Forest Park is still coming along. That was one of the smaller subdivisions, and I want to say they've got 3 or 4 lots left out there to infill. And then Popeye's Chicken. This photo was taken during their foundation phase, and if you drive by today, you'll see that they're already sheeted up to their trusses. So they have this. They have the frame up at this point. And is that the last one? Also, Dream Container Homes. And we are expecting those, they are just wrapping up the last little bits of site improvements that need to be done. And we are expecting the final inspections getting called in on those any day. And then on the high school renovation, we have issued demolition permits. And they've also got some temporary setup permits in for review currently. And we are anticipating their first phase of construction to be coming in somewhere around February was when they told us they would start coming. So.
Okay.
And I will open it up for any questions.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your report and reporting specifically on our community, what's going on and what phase and where they're at, where they stand. I appreciate that a lot. But most of all, what I really appreciate out of your report is the great news, and I've never heard of this ever since I've been following government affairs and anywhere, that permitting has cut the time has cut down in half.
That's what we're talking about.
Unbelievable. From 4 to 6 weeks to 2 to 3 weeks, you should be commended. And I think that is an amazing amount of work that you've done in collaboration and with others like One Stop Does It All, and they're in and they're out. And I can't tell you up until just recently how many complaints I've heard about permitting. And I know the mayor shared this with the mayor several years ago, that it took me 6 months to put a little porch on just in terms of permitting, and then another few months in terms of inspecting, and just put a little entryway porch like 3 feet by like 5 feet. It was unbelievable. And I 2 to 3 weeks isn't admirable. I can't believe that. If the contractors and the people who are building, the homeowners, should be elated about what's going on. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
I just
Well,
wanted to
it's a
jump in.
group effort, for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the update is perfect. It was short and sweet, but it's an update on every project, everything you've been doing, and just, I hope that other departments, kind of do the same and follow suit with an update just like that. So thank you for taking the time to do that for us.
I got a question. This use of noon time, a lot of contractors know it's easier for them to travel off the job site and the city gets closed down at noon time. What would it take to man the desk at noon?
Well, it's always primarily come down to staffing and the fact that we would have to alternate.
And I agree, and I'm trying to find out what would it take to do just that?
For our front desk, it would just take having somebody that we'd have to alternate lunches.
So you could do
That
with
would be,
switching over.
they handle more than just the building department, so I don't want to speak just for.
Well, see, that's the other part of it. There's you guys who screw with the paper, but there's the other people that have to take care of the desk,
Yes,
which also has to get thrown into this, what is needed to man it.
it would probably depend on the kind of business as well. If everybody else was gone and and staff was there, though, that they would, if they were coming there to see somebody, they'd still have to schedule an appointment and that sort of thing. Because
Right.
there might be other staff that they were meeting that would not be there otherwise,
Right.
but,
Because as I say, from a user point of view, noon is a good time to travel off the job site.
sure, yeah. Just so you know, myself and my inspector, we make ourselves available for their phone calls though, outside of it. So I mean, they don't have to necessarily come down here. The contractor doesn't have to always come down here. And with our e-permitting services, most of their applications and very soon with the e-permitting or the plan review part, there's gonna be very little reason they'd be required to come down and talk with us or come down to the office.
And that's good for the contractors who know the business, but the
Fair enough.
other people who are just starting, like when Doug's trying to build a little kitchenette in his bathroom or something, and he doesn't know what to do, his best time basically to travel would be at noon.
Gotcha. Yes.
Except for right, that $25 check to the water department is what I'm told. Has that been changed? The $25 check that has to be when you go to do your building permit, I think that has to go to the water department. It's separate from the application, or used to be. I'll find out more
It
information.
used to be a deposit for a utility account when you're in the building process for a builder, I believe, if that's what.
It's not part of the fee, it's actually a separate, it's not huge, but it's just.
Yeah, it's not a-
You have to write a separate check, is what I'm told, for that part of it, $25.
I would have to look in.
Maybe something administratively.
Yeah, that's as far as the setting up the utility account, and things of that nature.
Yes, yeah.
You have a Dropbox though, that you could put the check in.
Yes, but it's more about they have to come down to do it. It's just,
We actually do have easy pay access. I'll talk about it.
yeah, I think maybe it could be even incorporated into that fee, I don't know. With building this, but a really good job on getting permits out the door. When you first came in, you had your hands full. And you worked your butt off, and I know it's a whole team up there, I get that, it's engineering and planning as well. Jacob and Sharon's now into that role of engineering. But you really worked your tail off on getting your certifications and have done a lot of work in that area, and you're a good boss to work under, so that's what I've witnessed, so good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I just, sorry, not to. No, the efficiency improvement is something we've known about for a while, moving from this sequential marathon race kind of thing I've done, now it's your turn, to a concurrent review where we get sets and you can review things at the same time and kind of come back together. We've known that's gonna help a lot. And the tools that we're putting in place now are really helping that happen. And having staff resources also is a big help. One of the things you talked about, going digital and the state grants, but you didn't mention the technology fee, and I think that maybe the council might want to know about what that is.
What did, talk about the technology fee? So back in,
Yeah, there's each permit gets a.
yeah, in 2020, in 2020 in anticipation of moving to electronic permitting and then that next step of electronic plan review and providing these electronic services. We added to the fee schedule that you guys passed by resolution of a technology fee of 3% that's added on to the permit fees. And that is what we utilize to fund the different these projects initially, and then like in the case of the plan review, that's a subscription-based web service, so that would cover those costs.
That, you're right. But people are happy to pay that because they're getting them in 2 to 3 weeks.
There's advantages that come with it, for sure. Yeah, there are advantages that come with using these technologies.
Yeah.
I've said this before, but there's plenty of designers and contractors that you'll talk to that will say the only reason I print plans is so that they can bring them down here to be reviewed. And I would say the majority of the industry has already taken the step into electronic world.
And even for filing, sometimes we have to hold on to these for years. I don't know, maybe in engineering if that will change, because those are more like planned roads and stuff like that. But I imagine we get rid of some of the paper stuff and go to digital.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And we have retention period. Our documents management, the retention periods will stay the same, but the format will change, being electronic versus paper. So.
I don't recall us discussing those fees, so I just have a question about
No,
that.
we
so
did.
go back.
You're right,
Okay.
we did.
Well, that's a little concerning since we passed a resolution, but I'm just gonna say it like that. So can you explain how long do the fees last? Who has to pay them?
So the fee is applied to any building permit that's applied for, because those services, the electronic services, are used for all those, for all building permits. So the fee is applied to each building permit. And then the fee was established at 3%. That was based on calculations on the subscription fees and the implementation costs at the time, that the information I had at the time. Just to give for context, we are one of few cities that actually implemented a technology fee, but we're also taking great steps to implementing the technology behind it. Other places have gone with 5%. That seems to be kind of the standard that most went with that have implemented one. I found 3% was adequate to fund what we were talking about, at least at the time. And so
And how long will that 3% be?
that will be there until we want to change it, whether by removal or increase, whatever the council would want to decide on that. We would pass it by resolution again. The subscriptions and everything that's there has to be sustained. So it is appropriate for us to have a fee in place for these. But if we need to look at adjusting it, we can always look at adjusting it.
Yep.
One of the problems that I've run into is some of the as-bills were only kept for 1 year by state law. The reality is that a lot of buildings you don't look at for 10 years down the road. So I assume we're keeping these records for more than a year.
We follow the state's retention schedule right now.
Which is what?
For residential buildings, plans are kept for 2 years. For commercial buildings, they're kept for 10 years. And for public buildings, they're kept for the life of the building.
That's amazingly inadequate, coming from cities that are 300 years old. The other question is, are they duplicate records, or is it just a single repository for these records?
Yeah, we just have our building copy of those records, and yes, they are kept physically on site.
So we don't have a secondary place in case somebody blows this place up.
No, sir.
That should be looked into. But the state does not require a secondary.
Not that I know of, not a secondary.
Okay, the next question, does the fire department have a copy of the residence and building records?
They have access to any of the building records they want. They can always come talk to us if they need copies. Now,
Do they have it physically? So
I don't-
on a fire truck.
I don't know. I wouldn't know that.
Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna make the comment that the building department is in the general fund, but it's not, it has, it operates similar to an enterprise fund where we track the revenues and expenditures and they're kind of accountable to themselves. So that was something that came out of the Home Builders Association years ago, where when building departments were flush and extra cash flowing over into the general funds. And so that cuts both ways. So we're, the fees and everything else is about keeping the department. Expenses.
Well, that's totally fine. I just asked that maybe in the future we'd be a little bit
So
better before we
actually-
pass the resolution.
And so you know,
That's a
actually,
little concerning to me. Not that it was on you and all. I just, I
Mr.
was,
Chilton, actually, he's one of a precarious, he's in a precarious position because he answers to administration, but he also answers to police because he's code enforcement.
Mhm.
He has the ability, so it's weird that we actually share a kind of a liaison over the building official in that aspect, so, yes, did you know that?
he's like, can you let me know?
Yes, because you have the ability to shut down or do any code enforcement that you see fit.
Regarding the building.
Yep. Yeah,
That's all report.
all right, Michael.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, next item, send my annual finance and municipal court report back.
How's it going?
Good.
I won't take up too much of your time, hopefully. Lisa, can you push the solstice button? That technology works. It's great when it works. All right. So I'm going to go through a presentation. Judge Lindgren is on Zoom and we'll be able to chime in here in a second. So you'll have some opportunity to chat with her if you would like. Our city prosecutor is not able to attend today, so I've included some of his reports in our presentation here, but feel free to jump in at any time if you have questions or anything. Happy to answer anything I can. All right, so much like many other cities, the finance department oversees 4 general departments: finance, utility billing, IT, and courts. It's very similar for a city of this size. Until you get to the size of about $20,000 or so, that's when you would typically see someone like an IT manager or a more robust financial staff with a few other accountants or specific payroll people. But as you can see, for most of my departments, I only have about 2 employees per department. So we're pretty lean, but efficient. So is Judge Lindgren available? Judge,
I'm here.
are you there?
Yep.
Can you hear
Hello,
us?
everyone.
She's talking, but we can't hear her.
Can you hear me?
Give us just a minute, Amy, we'll see if we can get you unmuted, or maybe you unmute yourself.
I'm not muted.
I can hear you, Judge, but I'm all,
Can you ask her to unmute herself?
I can mute her, but I can't. She's already unmuted.
Okay.
Judge, I can hear you if you can hear me.
I can hear
Well,
you.
Amy, if you can hear me, you can call me and I can put you on speakerphone. Keep that out. So
Technology praises.
She might be using a headset or something.
she might be, yeah. It'll work itself out. So as I said, I sort of oversee the operations of the court staff in relations to how we operate municipal court as far as the overall operation of the court itself, how it does its processes and everything and procedures. That is obviously led by Counselor or Judge Lindgren, who is appointed by you as the council. You as the council also appoint the city prosecutor, which is Erskine Law Practice, Sam Erskine and his wife who own the law practice. They are working with Melanie and April and doing all the prosecutions. To give you an idea, we actually do misdemeanor crimes as a court of record here at the city. We actually do more misdemeanor crime cases than the county. So to give you just an idea of how much work there actually is and how much our police are out there actually doing proactive work and catching and writing people up and going through the prosecution phase. So a couple things I wanted to note for the last 6 months or a year or so is that we have transitioned from an old court software that was about 20 plus years old. That was quite an endeavor for our court staff, Melanie and April, to go through and really clean up everything that has been done in the past. Some of you may recall about 3 or 4 years ago, the city kind of went through an existential review of what it is to be a municipal court and how are we doing things, how can we improve relationships, and how do we do our current processes. And so that led to the hiring of Judge Lindgren and Erskine Law Practice and kind of a revitalization of our court procedures and how we view court as the city and community. So a couple of things that April and Melanie and Sam and his wife have been working on is the second bullet point there about really getting to the information as quickly as we can. So when there's a prosecution case or a misdemeanor crime or anything, we want to try and connect that information as soon as we can to make sure that everybody, as far as the other attorneys that may be working a case in the area, have access to as much information as they can, as quickly as they can, to make sure that we're improving that process. Recently, we also signed up with a partnership with NS Labs, which is a forensics labs that is actually based out of Pennsylvania. We have had a kind of a backup of toxicology reports for when somebody gets a DUI or something, and it takes forever for some of our labs locally to even get to it. So Sam has been working with me on getting an agreement with the labs in Pennsylvania. It's been working out great. So we send test kits over there. They have a large operation and can get us test results and everything a lot quicker. And we get a grant through OSP for that, so we don't have to pay anything more than what we normally would. So,
Can you guys hear me now?
Just so you know.
you already there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
So it's the speaker in the room, because I can hear her on YouTube and in Zoom. So just make sure the room in this room is on. Because I could hear the judge or the police chief as well. He was talking with Amy.
I think it's the room that's not broadcasting at me.
Over here, that speaker. Just make sure it's loud enough. Weird.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's definitely working for viewers at home.
That's helpful.
I can call Matt.
Well, I tried.
Amy, there?
Yes, I'm gonna go to myself now.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear your computer in the background, so go ahead and mute that. And I've got you on speakerphone.
All right, I think I'm.
Yeah, you're hearing the feedback.
Okay, is that better?
That is better.
Much better.
I have to say it's not on my end, I think it's on your end.
Okay, you're right up at the diocese now.
So Amy, I'm right at kind of the ending point of my discussion, other than a couple upcoming projects, which you can probably touch on. So if you want to take it over to finish up court.
Great. The big projects that we are completing is first finishing up submitting our traffic convictions to DMV electronically. I've spoken about that for the last probably 18 months, and through COVID, it had been difficult for us to get through with DMV. But they have finally opened their doors again. And so we're in the final testing phase, and that should be about another month. And what that essentially means is anytime someone is convicted of a traffic violation, we used to send them all through snail mail, but now we will be able to send them electronically through their portal. And so that will save the court staff a lot of time. We have similarly successfully transitioned to submitting the criminal convictions through Oregon State Police LEDs. That happened probably about 4 months ago. So Melanie worked hard on that and made it happen. And that also is now eliminating the snail mail process. And the final push that is upcoming is moving the police department moving to the electronic tickets. And what that means is that they will be uploaded electronically into the court system. And so they'll all work together. And so the court staff will no longer have to hand type in every single ticket, the person's name, address, and all of that information. So that will also bring us right into this century. We're excited about that. In the last month, we also hired the new bailiff. That was a contract, I believe, since the police department was, I think, feeling pretty stretched pretty thin. And so the company that does it also works for the city of Gladstone, where I'm also the judge there. And so the individual who's doing it works with me in both courts now, and he knows my style. And I think having that presence in the courtroom is just really important and helpful for maintaining order, I should say. So I really appreciate that cities providing that service to us, and just to make sure that we stay safe.
Yes.
I will be going to the judicial conference for the Municipal Court Judges Association in March, and that had been on pause for 2 years because of COVID. And so I'm excited to participate in that and make the connections again with the other municipal courts in the area. I talked about truancy court quite a bit, unfortunately, and I can't recall if I had told you all this, but that the legislature eliminated all penalties or fees associated with not sending your children to school. And so they basically single-handedly eliminated all truancy courts in the state. And so
Is that, Amy, is that just due to COVID?
no, it was part of a juvenile reform. So in addition to eliminating all truancy courts, they have eliminated all fees associated with juveniles. One thing that's probably good is that you can no longer send a juvenile to collections agency. And say they get a speeding ticket or an MIP and they aren't paying, you can't send it to a collection agency. So I think that was probably, most people would perceive that as positive. But there were a lot of other parts of it that I think may not have been well thought out, or they didn't receive any consultation or feedback from the public or the municipal courts or schools about the impact of eliminating truancy court. So
Thank you for that.
yeah, it was really disappointing for a lot of the courts who had a really great established program, because I think that from the feedback I was getting, they saw attendance increase by like 25% in some cases, which, in COVID times is really important, and where kids are really struggling. So that was real unfortunate decision. Just on a side note too, I was thinking the other day about after we had court that I only had 2 failures to appear. And so I only had to issue 2 warrants. In Oregon City and Gladstone, where I also work, I get about 30 a day of court appearance. And that is a really noticeable difference. And I firmly believe that the reason for that is because of the jail, and the fact that the jail is willing to hold people. They currently aren't right now because of the Omicron surge, but that is, I think, temporary. And so I just want to publicly say that we appreciate the jail taking our defendants and working with us to hold them. My practice is that I give people about 2 failures to appear, and after they fail to appear twice, then I will hold them. in custody or require bail to be posted. So, otherwise, everything is going really, really well. And I feel very lucky to have the staff that we have. April and Melanie are such hard workers. They're very dedicated and committed, as is Mr. Erskine and our defense attorneys. And so I just am really happy about the place that we're in with the court. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Aaron.
I guess, are there any questions? I can't see anywhere, so.
You can't even see us?
No, I can't even see. I'm purely just talking to my phone right now.
Oh, okay, so you've shut down your computer, you can't see us, okay. It's Mayor Scholl. And just good work on everything that you got going on there. I know that when you first came in here, there was quite a backlog of not just cases, but also fines that had to be gone through, and Melanie and April really, and yourself, kicked butt on that and got that addressed. How, I guess it'll be probably for Matt, how are we sitting financially? We know that courts is something that serves our area, and it's very, being a court of record makes a huge difference that we can prosecute people within our city for our businesses if they're caught shoplifting and stuff like that, versus if they got kicked over the county, they more than likely get thrown out because the caseload they can't keep up on anyhow over there at the county. But how are we doing? Been all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've leveled out from the beginning where Amy and Sam came in, and we saw this kind of huge increase in cost because they're spending a lot of time going through all the old reports and overtime for Melanie and April to kind of get through this backlog. And so we've kind of leveled out and kind of also leveled out our revenue as well. We got a huge bump because we switched collections agencies. And so we always tend to see a huge, when you get a new company come in, because they are going through all the old stuff that the old company kind of just left on its side. So we saw that kind of huge bump, and now that's kind of leveled off as far as revenue is concerned.
Well, I really appreciate your comment about the jail. I mean, that's a big piece of information. I think a lot of times we're the first to complain about jail doesn't hold people long enough, or there's this issue and this issue. So you bringing that up is really important for us all to put it in perspective. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I just want to thank our prosecutor too, Sam, for all the hard work that he does too. I mean, he's, trying to work with these people and figure out a fair balance for the city versus the litigants, and he does a very good job of that, I think.
Yes, he does. I think he's very, very professional, gets all the discovery and police reports to the defense attorneys very quickly. And because of that, our turnaround time is about 3 weeks for a case to resolve, which is really remarkable for the criminal justice system.
Yes, it is.
And it's not just Sam though, too. The defense attorneys we have, Lucy Heil and Ross Dennison, are really excellent and work their cases really hard. And a lot of times it's hard for them to get in touch with defendants, and they are, been in a lot of courts, and I'm just really pleased with the level of service that they provide to their clients as well.
Good.
All right. Do you have a question, Doug?
Not at all.
Okay.
All right, I will sign off then. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
See you, and it won't be COVID time.
All right. Have a good day, Amy.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So real briefly as well, I oversee utility billing and business license processes, which is Jamie and Don over next door. So you've probably talked to them on the phone, or if you ever hear the voicemail of St. Helens, that is the voice of St. Helens is actually Jamie. So she volunteered to do all those recordings. So a couple things that I wanted to at least mention to the council. Obviously, we have late fees that will be beginning again soon. And so our staff has really taken a proactive approach to contact every user that has had those balances for many years. A lot of those users have begun to start paying, and so we're starting to see that backlog trying to catch up. So when we do start late fees, hopefully we're not catching anybody off guard. Everybody should be well aware that things and shut off processes are restarting up again as we kind of hopefully start to come out of the situation we're all in. So our utility billing staff assisted with some of the water master plan information that comes out, as well as implementing our new Encode software system, similar to the court software that was 20+ year. We had a software called Springbrook that we had been on since Springbrook was pretty much invented 20+ years ago. So going through and transferring all that data from 20+ years, and you can think of how many employees have been through utility billing. So one person does it one way, and then another person does it another way. And so you have 20+ years of build up, and transferring all that data into a new database system. Wanted to make sure that everything was correct moving in. So that takes a lot of time and backlog and individual checking one-on-one with account information. So the building license software we assisted with, as well as I'm going to show you here the Easy Pay process that is fairly new to the city, but we're going to start implementing that in additional departments. The business license software is all changed and updated to kind of current standards, as well as all the code information that was approved and website updates that I'm going to show you briefly here in a few minutes. A couple things that we do have on the agenda for the near future is obviously the implementation of the public safety fee. That will be starting here in another couple of periods, so you'll see that on the rec fee come off.
I've been waiting to see it.
This next bill, you'll see the rec fee of like $1. It's typically $2, but if you may think about the billing period is from the 16th through the 15th. Technically, we had you passed a resolution where the rec fee ends on December 31st. So we're doing $1 instead of $2 because that kind of breaks up the half to ensure that we're charging the correct amount. So you'll see a $1 charge on the utility bill, and then the next month you'll see that public safety fee come on. And then our utility billing staff is also going through with the public safety fee. We made some changes in the codes to how we charge EDUs and how those are addressed on each community. So an apartment complex with 20 different apartments, each apartment is assessed one EDU instead of a shared amount based on impervious surface or anything like that. So it's a lot more straightforward for our staff and a lot easier to explain to people who have questions. Any questions specifically about utility billing? I did want to quickly show you this. As I mentioned, the business license has been overhauled a little bit, and that includes our website. And I wanted to show you this just so you know that this information is here. A lot of the information, a lot of the stuff that's public knowledge that we want to be able to tell people, it's already available, it's already on the website, and some people just don't know where to go to get that. So if you go under business and development, business in St. Helens, you have all these subcategories. You also have a local business directory. So any local business in St. Helens that has a business license is listed in this directory. Okay, so that's automatically included in your business license fee. But a couple of things for any incoming businesses. I know you guys had a little presentation from COPAC, and we also have SET. We've done on our own is going through and saying, why not St. Helens, and really building up why you want to live here. So it is so much information here that any new business would want. Business license information, there's business advantages, there's a business guide. This really talks about internally what you need from the city of St. Helens, where to go, how to start a business, directions and transportations for somebody looking to bring a business here. Hey, I need access to an airport. Where are the airports? Okay, well, we have 3 in the area. There's Scappoose, there's Hillsborough, there's Portland. How far are those away? All that kind of basic information, train information, bus information. So all of these incentives and financing, there's contact information, discussions about the enterprise zones, the opportunity zones, how the program works. All that information is directly on the website. And then, of course, resources for business, so phone numbers and information for state resources, business associations. Most of these are links to their actual websites with the phone number information. There is a ton of information out here for businesses, and I think a lot of people just don't know that it's here. So This is me telling you that it's here.
Well, I'll be sure to pass it along to Main Street too, that they need to check out our city website.
And the chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finance department, we have been through a lot with the Springbrook upgrade into Encode, our new software that's kind of taken a lot of the last couple of years, and we're still growing from that. We've implemented electronic time cards for employees, which is a very brand new process, especially for folks here who have been doing paper time cards for the last 20 plus years. So learning how to use a computer and, and doing everything electronic. And similar to utility billing, it's transferring those 20 plus years of financial data into something useful into the new system. So going through all of that information. We've started up an employee self-service website through Encode. That's where people get their pay stubs. They can change their W-2s. They can change their dependents, addresses, information. They get their W-2s electronically now, so you can just download them. On January 31st, when we upload them, you just go in and print them off, and it's all right there.
But wait a minute, the federal government's gonna be ready early. They are. Just saying.
A couple things to note, as we went through a bond refinancing process a year or so ago, that required us to actually go out for a bond rating. So the city went through that process with a external agent to produce that rating of a AA bond rating. That was actually used.
It's just buzzing, so.
No, you just ignore it. I'll come grab it. So that AA rating, which is a good rating, especially for a firm that has, or a city that has never gone out for a bond rating before. So I know John specifically has used that to help secure the funding that we've received in theory for the waterfront development and those future bond ratings. So I know you have a group behind you. I'll try and quickly. So we refinanced a number of debt services that we had, our water, sewer, and economic development account. So refinancing those debts saved the city about $1 million over the remainder of 10 years or so that we had on those loans. And then as we talk about kind of continuing to build partnerships in the community, I wanted to let you all know that as the finance director, I am a board member of Community Action Team. So I sit on that board. I've been doing that for about 2+ years. John affords me the ability to kind of meet there, every Monday, I think at 2 p.m. or something, they have a meeting. So I am a part of that board and we'll continue that partnership. As I mentioned before, the city has received the GFOA budget award for the last 6 years. So far, still as of this year, we are only one of 3 cities that have received that award. 5 total in Oregon, 2 others are special districts. One thing I did want to mention on the agenda for the next meeting, I believe you will have a job description for the accounting positions. Similar to what engineering has done, they've created this 1, 2, 3 level positions for potential growth within our department, within our current staffing, somebody who's looking to effectively develop themselves and move to that next stage. So we've created that same similar process in the accountant level. So there are certain specifics and requirements that you have to meet, but it does provide an opportunity for growth for the city of St. Helens to hopefully retain those as well. IT departments, there's a lot listed there. And a lot we've done over the last year. One of the biggest things we did was actually this past weekend, we pulled off a huge Band-Aid on our IT department as far as a domain switch. And that's still something we're working through and a lot of holes to fill. But it's a huge Band-Aid that we've been working on for the last couple of years. So I do want to give credit to Darren and Matt and our More Power team who's been doing that. They've been here all weekend working through that transition and then all yesterday and today as well. And kind of filling in all the holes where we've pulled the Band-Aid off and now we see where the water's coming from. And now I have to fill it all up. So similar to the accountant hopefully the next meeting, you'll see a job description approval for an IT specialist 1, 2, and 3. Same thing as the accountant and the engineering positions that you've approved in the past. I kind of went through that pretty fast. There's a lot of information there, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You talked about the electronic time card, being able to update your information. How secure is that from being hacked?
It's our similar security to what has been increased from when we had an IT incident a couple years ago. So it's a lot more secure than it has been. I would not be able to give you the specifics of what kind of security measures we have in place right now.
But it's been addressed.
Yes, it has definitely been addressed.
Since we've heard that this is getting to be a big problem out there in the world.
It is.
And most big employers use electronic time cards and, allow access for all your information that you need. That way it eliminates processes. So, standard.
Yeah. Glad Councilor Topaz addressed that, and so did you. I think it was in the Sunday Oregonian, an article on just increased ransomware attacks here in the state, and also, I thought we would be on top of it, and you said that we are, so as best we can.
As best we can, and as much as, we don't like to talk about the IT incident that happened, last year or so. But that caused us to look at a lot of issues that we had that were not being addressed at the time.
We were very lucky.
Yep. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Thanks for the use of the phone.
Okay, review update of Main Street memorandum and understanding. I'm sure that's you, John.
Yeah, I'll give a report. I can't say that I've carried most of the water on this, but this is an amendment to the memorandum of understanding with Jedco. It's actually
Main Street.
Main Street, right? And we're doing a couple things here. We're removing for Jedco. We're having a new name, which is going to be their official name. They're working through the process to get those done at the state level. For filing, it's going to be the St. Helens Main Street Alliance. The other piece is the financial support that the city has offered them for 2 years of support. And that support was going to be a $30,000 pledge of a staff member. We were going to hire someone for them to basically take the administrative burden off of them to let them do that. The composition of the board, there's a lot of HR folks and people that feel like they're very capable of doing that. They see more,
Value in them going out themselves.
doing it themselves, and my perspective, that's great. That's one less thing to
They've
manage.
also got a $15,000 grant from CSAT to help with that too. As well.
When they
So
were here last, they were talking about hiring an executive director.
And they are.
that's exactly
Okay,
it.
so they're saying, I don't want a staff member, we would rather put this towards an executive director.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, I just want to make sure I'm tracking the
yes.
last time they were here. Okay.
Maintain greater separation, independence as well, plus the burden on you for overseeing other staff.
And we pledged Rachel as part of their executive director, when she's, they got up and rolling, she'll kind of reel back.
Yeah.
Volunteer you as
That's why John said he hasn't been very involved in this part of it.
Well, the mayor's been attending meetings, and Councilor Berkeley's been attending some as well, and I feel like we're well represented in the meetings. And all there's the energy, a lot of it is happening here.
Yeah, there is.
And the other changes are related to that, not having an employee, the things that go along with that as far as the support and the compensation insurance and things of that nature. Just be writing a check, which is a good place to be when you're trying to support things rather than administer them.
Is there any update on like the office space? Are you gonna get to that? Because I know I've seen that in there too, and that has been something we've kind of talked about, providing them with the space, right?
So they've actually, in the last meeting, have decided they don't want to utilize our space that we are offering. They want to actually, they're looking at going up towards, across from Senior Center store. And they know that the owner of buildings are right near Harrington's. And they would have their own little space and be able to utilize the whole window frontage of that space too.
And so they're gonna be funding that themselves and.
Yes, yep.
Okay, all right.
Which, so, I mean, they're really trying to be independent. There's a lot of good people on that board.
I like that. I just wanna put
Yeah.
that information out there so that other people we know it's clear, you know, they're doing this and.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry if I jumped in there, but I was just curious about that when I was looking.
No, that's perfect. He's supporting the Main Street program, and we're not their only source of support. They're well supported throughout the community. Sources.
Any other questions for John on that? I see Jacob there, John.
This, the MOU is set up with my signature. This amendment is set up with my signature, so there's any consternation about that. Make note of that.
That'll be the John's signature.
Yeah, well, it's typically we authorize, you as a council authorize what I signed.
That's right.
So that's, I just wanted to.
And
make
it
that
seemed
issue.
like a lot of the stuff that were changed was just changing the name and a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's just making us aware that when we say, hey, why did you sign that, John? We talked about that.
Right,
Yep. It'll be approved tonight, so.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's go to Columbia View Park expansion permitting.
Yay.
Jacob.
Yeah, so
Hey,
things
Jenny.
are progressing and, you know, when I started here, the city was looking at that property, of course, we hadn't owned it yet and years have passed and hey, we're looking at the first project on Vanille or Near Mill property, and that is expansion of Columbia View Park. My understanding is that the Parks Commission has reviewed and approved the concept. And so the reason I'm here for you today is to make sure we have your consent to move forward with the land use application to give it to the Planning Commission for approval of expansion of the park. It's a big deal. We don't expand parks very often. And so we wanted to make sure the council was aware on board for us to proceed with that. And if that's the case, we can get our notice out in time for the Planning Commission's meeting next month.
So if we wanted to, like the rest of that, we expand it down the road, we can adopt more into it. Or we could just name it Council 2022 Park. If we chose to.
Naming it, you know, that's, you can name it what you want, as long as you can pass it by the Parks Commission. But it is a, you know, it's an expansion of land use.
Yeah.
It's an establishment of land, it's expansion of the use of land, and so that's why I have this.
What you're saying is that there is a little bit of a open space there that down the line, we could even expand it even further,
Yeah,
right? That we don't plan on developing on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what, yeah.
You could conceivably say, well, we don't want any development, we just want it to be all park.
From a
Yeah,
historic,
go through the right
from a
side.
historic point of view, the Parks Commission weighed in. I think quite a few, I don't know if it was a majority or not, making a park from the water back about 100 feet or so, all the way down to Plymouth Street. That's where they started. And so that was one of the things that the Parks Commission wanted from the get-go. There were a few holdouts on that. And I just appreciate the parks people agreeing to this concept that everyone involved, the stakeholders involved, wanted to expand Columbia View Park. And what a great plan it is, I think. And I think that when this went before the Parks Commission, they were very open about it. So I just want to report that.
If I might add to the blue boundary line was determined by the extent of improvements to the Riverwalk. So that's the reason why the parks terminates there at this time, because that's what we have the funding to construct.
Total
So it can
total
absolutely
collaborative,
expand.
total collaborative input as well between the associates who drew this plan up and the public and everyone involved. I thought the process moved along very smoothly, and thank you for ushering that through.
And we know there's gonna be a public access along the entire river because that's what's in the waterfront plan. Now, the exact width, there's some prescriptions in the zoning, but there could be some variability, and so we just don't know all that yet. So we know we'll have public access along the entire river for sure.
Maybe this is an appropriate question, I'm not exactly sure, but when we were at the Riverwalk meeting, I was looking at the plans and I was talking with, I think it was the contractor who was drawing up the plans. And they were talking about still working on some of the issues with, at first, the stage was gonna have another area where they could set up music or, I don't know exactly, like an extra stage area up over by the playground. They decided that that wasn't feasible and they were kind of redoing that. Has that been updated on this end?
No, so this is still a 30% design.
Okay.
And so it still has to go through 2 more revisions and then you get to final construction. So there's still the idea that there might be another structure.
Yeah.
But the location and the size and all of that hasn't been worked out yet.
And it doesn't need to be quite yet.
Exactly, there's still further revisions, yeah, and we're simply moving forward on the acreage of expansion, which we know, that's gonna be the extent of the walk phase 1. So that part is known. The very specifics of the park improvements are still to be worked out, yeah. And I think, yeah, John.
No, I was just gonna say, there's a certain amount of strategy with this method here that we're defining a small footprint, because one of the conditions of the grant that we helped secure to construct these improvements had a condition of making that woody kind of use, public use. So defining any bigger footprint that we need to kind of works against us for going after future grants.
Oh, gotcha.
And working down there to try to get sequential grants and kind of build a river walk and also to entertain public-private partnerships to see what the development community might be willing to build and turn back to the city as far as park opportunities in the future. There's a lot of things that are very strategic in our small bite here.
I gotta speak to the very small components to this plan, concept that turned into a plan. And one of them is that the consultants very much listen to community members, musicians, and whatever about wind, where the stage is and which way it should be pointed because of the wind and because of the sunset, which 13 nights is they're usually playing during when the sun's going down, those kinds of things, and the wind is coming up. So some of those things were taken in consideration, and I just think that it was a good collaborative effort with a lot of give and go from everyone. I think it was a good formulative plan developed from that.
Yeah, wind never helps when it's picking up in the microphone and blowing your music.
So in steps moving forward, this goes to the planning commission, correct?
Do you foresee any issues with the planning commission?
Well, it'll be
I know that's a big question.
It'll be
but
very
I just think-
important to make sure the planning commission understands their parameters.
Okay.
Their objective is not to design the park.
Right.
And so that's what we as staff are gonna have to make sure that, okay, this is what you're approving. Don't get down
Not
this other
details.
road, yeah.
It just so happens we're the applicant and the property owner, so it's, yeah.
And I think the planning commission is very much wanting to be in sync with the city council and having a clear understanding of what the council's position is on things. So, yeah, I don't see any issues.
Yeah,
With the planning could, because, yeah. No, my wife and I, we took a field trip to Independence over the weekend. We spent, yeah, we stayed at we went down and
Stayed at the hotel?
stayed at the hotel. Cool.
Is it
Nice.
absolutely a 4-star hotel?
It's a wonderful hotel, but it was really nice seeing what they have done. And I think it really helped me visualize what we're working on here. And I talked Jenny's ear off a little bit yesterday about some stuff. But one thing that I did notice about it is that on they had larger park area. So I'm really glad to see that we are thinking about park expansion. Perhaps more in the future, but at least some park expansion, because they do have a really nice city park on their, I guess it would be their north end. Anyway, yeah, I might have some more to say about that, but it was, I couldn't go down with the Main Street group when they did their field trip. So yeah, it's very worthwhile and just fills me with excitement about what we're doing. I mean, theirs is nice, but ours is gonna be,
Were you able to go up on the roof?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That makes it all a little different.
Yep.
And we'll make it clear that the buildings, the stage and such, are later.
Yeah,
And those will, we'll have to compare those to our architectural standards for this area.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception. A lot of people think that we're putting this, getting this concept and gonna put out a proposal for buildings. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Well, no, that's not what we're trying to get to a phase where we can actually put this out for a qualified developer.
Yeah,
Get
Jacob,
the infrastructure in place.
Jacob's specifically talking about the stage.
Yes.
The planning commission will get to weigh on the architectural standards of the stage because it's within the Riverfront District architectural standards. So yes, that's true. The developer, it's totally different, but specifically, they will see the stage very soon.
So yeah, the plans identify a building and naturally, what's this gonna look like? I said, well, that's item for down the road.
Good. I think the way that you just said that is perfect. So good luck, guys.
A couple technical things. So I think we'll want a motion tonight at regular session to sign the land use application on behalf of the property owner. So that'll be something Kathy makes sure we do. There's also 2 amendments to Mayor Reed's scope of work on tonight's regular session. So I just wanted to mention what they were because they're related to this project. The first amendment is an archaeological survey addendum. So because some of our money is federal, the tribes had the opportunity to comment and they wanted an archaeological survey. That is being funded by the grant, so it's not coming from the city's coffers. And because there are pilings in this area, they have to do a special documentation because they're old enough to require some historic documentation. So it's some added work, added time. The money is not coming from us. So that's what the amendment is covering. The second amendment, so you'll notice on this map, there's the playground and it's sort of a dotted line around it. And then on the park expansion side, there's some trees and kind of a landscaped area. So the contract amendment with Mayor Reed tonight is to look at that playground and its potential to expand and incorporate this new design for the Riverwalk. So we wanted to have a cohesive play area that kind of melded with all these features we have in the park that we're working on. So it's under $50,000 to have Mayor Reed look at this design. We feel like it's appropriate for a landscape architecture firm who's working on the park already to design this playground equipment. John, I don't know if you had other comments there.
No, while you had that up, I was gonna make mention of tonight's agenda.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said, and just, big picture, we're redoing Columbia View Park. It has, you just have this new transportation feature bookended by the new stage, and just really, it's the right time to really take a good look at how that all flows together. And we have, some really excellent landscape architects that are working with the equipment that's there is not serviceable, they'll probably use somewhere else pretty easily. But to come up with a design that gets away from using wood chips, it works better with the splash pad. And it's more of knowability, it's all surface, broader spectrum.
I just want to weigh in, and I think this might be an appropriate time, just while it's here, not that we should act on anything like this, but at the time we were collaborating, I did have the input of some cultural aspects to this whole riverfront development. I mentioned the name Michael Curry because Michael Curry was a member of this community for some time. He moved to Scappoose for a better facility to create world-renowned puppetry and sculptures throughout the world. He was willing at one time to actually construct a Lou Witt sculpture, but didn't know where. And Lou Witt, as you know, is a ethnic myth regarding Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Adams as sisters, and their collaboration of giving to the tribes in different ways. So I just wanted to make certain that while this plan is here, that there is room for someone like Michael Curry, and there are, I'm sure, hundreds of other artists who are as accomplished could do something very sustainable in this area. Anyway, I just want to weigh in on that, just so keep that as an open kind of thought, value, if nothing else.
It is, it's valuable, and we've heard that throughout the process, that this is a good place for sculptural elements or artwork. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our city administrator report. 5 minutes, so we take a break. Go.
I will do my best to do that. So 5:30 tonight, we have your State of the City. So yeah, we're gonna play the video there, and it should be great. Main Street's moving along. The loan documents from Business Oregon, from the Special Public Works Opportunity Fund, that are going to be the provide the funding to move the first stages of the road extensions and the Riverwalk, and are finally have contract documents back in place. They're in legal review. They'll come back, and that's $14.7 million. The repayment of that stream is going to be the Urban Renewal Agency, and those funds and our projections are tracking really nicely. So it's our projected payment and the revenues are all looking really excellent at this point. The dock use committee is meeting next Tuesday on the 25th, and we're meeting internally with our city prosecutor to come up with regulations that will basically change the way we look at the docks and waterways. We're going to expand that boundary, and basically the big picture thinking is that activities are not allowed unless they're allowed. If you have a boat, it's designated to be here and not anywhere else. And that gives a lot of latitude to police all of this area. Enforcement's a completely different picture, but just having the legal tools in place. There'll be some discussions about the kiosk and the potential fees and reservation systems and all those dynamics. I did sit in on the Columbia River Yachting Association board meeting last night, and
I missed that. That didn't get a link though. Didn't see a link.
It was a good meeting, and then
Been voted off the island.
they're excited about the project. They see a lot of value in the kiosk and what that can bring to better improving our docks.
Good.
Friday, we have library director interviews. Counselor Topaz, Margaret, and I whittled the pool of 46 down to 9, and it's down to 8, and so we'll have a full day of Zoom screening and trying to bring back a that's the best of that group for 2 weeks later. So I mentioned the design of the street and utilities is 90%, so it's getting real close. Our RFP for engaging with the development community, re-engaging with the development community. We've been meeting with not only internally, but with some consultants that help leverage that effort, so that we are making direct targeted outreach, and we're hoping to have something back for you on the first meeting in February. Not the 16th will be out, soon after you approve it. I had the Masonic building lease that is ready, but it didn't meet the cutoff of the state, so it'll carry over to the next building. The tourism audit proposal, we've worked with our internal auditors, and they for due to capacity recommended somebody else. We've reached out to them. They're going to prepare a scope of work, and they feel like it'll be a 4-week-ish effort. And you'll see that probably you'll see a scope and a budget for that. Tonight we have a public hearing on the acquisition of the tram, and we have Bill Monahan's on the call. If you have any questions about that. And basically, we're following the procedures would be to sell city property. Same kind of hearing, same kind of announcements. So it's not really well defined process to follow, but it's the same number of days to advance the hearing. It's just something. And yeah, big day, the big hearings for a next energy project out at Claskenai and or westward. There's 126 people on the call this afternoon, weighing in, giving testimony and how for and opposition, and that should potentially a $2 billion investment in that community, which would bring 25% growth in tax rate in the county. Yeah, just that one project. So.
But it's gonna use up 6 acres of land that we can't afford to lose.
I'm not gonna go there.
As long as they were serious about that,
Emails that we were having with Gina, I think it was, Gina.
Oh, yeah, the Rails Safety Committee, I copied the council in a proposal to, they wanted to do some pedestrian overcrossings over either in St. Helens and down to Scappoose School, the schoolhouse road there, and
I like your response.
yes.
I responded too, and then she
Yeah.
responded to me.
Yeah, so they've kind of abandoned the overpass or the pedestrian overpass just because of the limited benefit and high expense, and they're going to proceed with a rendering at Gable Road to have that crossing. So
That's awesome.
yay, good.
Yes. Way to advocate, John.
That and 1,000 other things. So.
Yep. Okay, so before I adjourn, I'll let the public know that.
Before you go, I'm gonna ask for something this evening, so I want you to give me a heads up. And here's the pass out. How many did I give you there, Doug?
I can't count today.
Okay, well, see if there are enough kids all the way over.
Now I can. There's 2.
4, 5.
Pass those over.
There we go.
Kathy, you get one? Okay, all right, so we'll look this over a little bit later, but I just want to let people know that we will be going to executive session or S 192.6602E, real property transaction, and H consulting with council potential litigation. So with that, we are adjourned. Okay, we'll let take a 10-minute break, and then we'll go back up. Hey, Kathy, did you want to test that? Did you get an opportunity to test that?
Bill, can you hear me?
It doesn't sound like that.
Finally dawned on me one of the
It's kind of warming then.
crew. Where are these guys? The executive,
Would be the first step.
He's sitting off to the side.
Thanks, Patrick. You take your mask off when you're talking.
I can't hear you, Bill.
Kathy, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.